That's right, it's that time of the year again for Google I/O 2019, where I suffer through a mostly boring 2-hour keynote and pick out the little interesting bits so you guys don't have to. This year, Google said that they were focusing on features throughout all of their products that were helpful. So nothing super major breakthrough, although there were a couple hardware devices and a couple new phones we can talk about. But for the most part, a lot of these new announcements are mostly little software features that are pretty cool and added together are pretty significant. So let's get into it. One cool thing is coming soon in Google search results on mobile. You'll now be able to get possibly 3D AR results. So for example, they had one where it's like a arm muscle, another one was like a shark, where you search for some things, you might be able to click on it and get a little 3D model of it. Then they were talking about Google Lens. Google Lens itself is not new, but they did announce a couple new cool uses for it. One is being able to point the Google Lens at a restaurant menu, and if it has the information about that restaurant, it will actually be able to highlight visually on the menu the most popular dishes and stuff. And then when you go to pay, you can point the camera at the receipt and it will automatically calculate the tips and be able to split the order with multiple people with you. And finally with that, they announced that phones that use Google Go apps, which are like the super low end phones that are really cheap, like for places with not a lot of high income like India, that sort of thing, will now support translating visually with the Google Lens. So before, this was only reserved for more high power phones. Now you can do it with cheap phones. Then they talked about a new initiative with the Duplex. You know Duplex from last year. They talked about how they have a phone conversation with the Google Assistant so it can screen calls and stuff. Now they're having Google Assistant be able to do things on the web. They're calling Duplex on the web. And one first use case is being able to book rental cars for you. So this will basically fill in all your information and do everything for you, ask for some selections that are required for you to answer, like which car you want to rent, but for the most part, it can go through a bunch of different processes automatically, and they're probably going to branch this out into other procedures in the future. They're just starting with rental cars. Next, one major change with Google Assistant is the amount of data required to run Google Assistant. They were able to shrink it from 100 gigabytes down to about half a gigabyte, which means that they could now move a lot of stuff onto the phone itself, not have to send everything to the cloud, which means that a lot of commands that are just going to be doing things on your phone now are up to 10 times faster because it can all be calculated right on the phone. It doesn't have to send it over a signal. They said that this is going to be coming to Pixel phones later in the year, but they did a bunch of examples where they did things back to back, and it was very fast with every single command doing stuff on the phone, and it worked really well. Another kind of paradigm shift with Google Assistant is that it's going to be using, going forward, things called personal references, which means it'll be able to take in information you provide it, things like your emails and Gmail. It'll kind of be able to like get trips coming up and stuff. It'll be able to look at your contacts and see, okay, I'm near this person's house. So basically it can use context. So if you then say something like, oh, I want to go to John's, it'll know you're talking about the person in the contact probably, as opposed to John's Pizza Place or something like that. Or if you ask for information about a flight, you can say, when's that flight or something like that, and it'll know that you're probably talking about the flight that is coming up that it knows about from your email address. So it's just going to be able to use personal information. It'll be able to maybe get information from your Google Photos, that sort of thing, and then use that with Google Assistant to get more accurate results. They're also introducing a new mode called driving mode, which basically just creates a better interface and layout for when you're driving, and it'll show different shortcuts that you're most likely to use, and it's stuff that's really easy to just tap on. And if you're like gonna go play music, it'll pop up a little thing to play the music, so it's not gonna pop up the whole screen and block your navigation. It'll always show the navigation. It'll show some contacts you might wanna click on, that sort of thing. So that's kind of cool, but nothing huge. Google also announced a couple new privacy features, which I think are pretty cool. The first is auto deletion of Google history. So now you'll be able to go into your Google account, and I believe this is for all types of data, I'm not 100% sure, and it'll give you a few options to automatically delete your history, like search results or whatever, and choose to delete things that are older than 3 months or older than 18 months automatically. So it's not going to keep your history forever if you don't want it to. And they did launch that today, so you can go check see how that works. Another neat one is they're adding Incognito Mode for Google Maps, which is kind of unexpected, but now you can do things like search and go to places and it won't store those searches. Then Google talked a lot about a few different accessibility features, which I think are actually a pretty big deal. So the first one is live transcription of anything on the operating system on Android. So this could be if you're watching a video on Instagram, where Instagram I don't believe has any closed captions, or maybe you're watching some sort of random live stream on a mobile website, not Google, that supports closed captions. This will basically use Google Assistant to listen to the audio and automatically provide a on-screen closed caption no matter what you're watching, even if it's like an audiobook without video or something like that. So that's actually pretty cool. It's also really useful for people who are either like deaf or hard of hearing, and also people who might just be somewhere like in a meeting where you don't want to have the audio going, but you still want to be able to watch the video. And then they started talking about Android 10Q. So the first big one, well, they didn't say it was a big deal, but I think a lot of people will like this, is dark mode. Android will now have dark mode, and that will be enabled automatically every time, for example, you enable low power mode as well. So it will save battery life from the screen. Or if you just want to have it enabled all the time, you'll be able to do that. They said that one of the major focuses of Android 10Q will be privacy and security. So one example is they're changing how security updates are applied. They're going to be over the air much sooner, and you'll be able to install them right away. You won't have to wait for the downloads, and you won't even have to restart your phone to get these security updates, which I think is going to be great. And then finally, Google talked about a new feature called Focus Mode, which is actually going to be available in both Android P and Q, which is basically like a customizable version of Do Not Disturb, where you'll be able to choose a bunch of different apps that you think are distracting, and then if you're trying to do work or something, you can enable focus mode, so it'll block any apps that you choose, but maybe let through other notifications from apps that you want to specifically let through. So that's pretty cool. All right, next we got a bunch of different hardware they announced. So first is the Nest Hub. So they're actually renaming the Google Home Hub to Nest Hub. They're bringing a lot of stuff under the Nest branding. And then they also announced a new one called Nest Hub Max, which is a little bit bigger. It's a 10-inch screen, and the difference is this one actually has a camera on it. So if you don't want the camera, you can still get the regular Nest Hub, but the camera does add some features. One example is you'll be able to actually use the Nest Hub Max as a actual Nest Cam, so you don't have to buy a separate security camera. You can actually use that one as one. And another neat one is you might know how the Google Home already has voice match. So if you have multiple people in your home, it'll recognize different voices and be able to apply those commands to different people's accounts, for example. Well, now they'll be, with the camera, be allowed to do that with your actual face. So it'll not just do voice match, but face match. So if you walk in front of the camera and say, hey, remind me to do this, it'll know not just by your voice, but also your face who's asking it. And they said that this is all going to be processed on the device, so it's more secure. It doesn't have to go to the cloud. None of the facial recognition stuff goes off the device. And another neat use of the camera is that you'll be able to actually use gestures to stop. So instead of having to use the wake word to stop if there's like music playing and it doesn't hear you, you can just hold up your hand and it'll pause it. Me personally, I'm still not really super comfortable with having cameras on these Google Assistant things, but I would rather trust Google with it than like Amazon's one, because Google, I think, is better at security. So I'm probably not going to get one. I already have a Nest Cam and I have the Google Home Hub, or now Nest Hub, but still, you might like it. All right, finally, new Google Pixel phones. They're announcing a new line, new edition of Pixel phones that are going to be more affordable. They announced most recently that they're going to be the 3A and the 3A XL, so more budget versions of the most recent Pixel phones, and they're going to be $399 starting at that price. They didn't exactly go into all the specs, but they said that a lot of the software features are going to be the same, especially for the camera. You're still going to have things like night sight, portrait mode, the super res zoom, so that's really cool. Interestingly, it's going to have a 3.5mm headphone jack, which is hilarious because even the more expensive one doesn't have that. Maybe they'll add that to the next version of Pixel phones, I don't know. And it'll also be able to do some more advanced features like AR on Google Maps. This is going to be for both the A phones and the regular phones. So you'll be able to like use Google Maps, hold it up, and it'll kind of show you arrows in real life with augmented reality, where you have to go. So that was a lot shorter than the 2 hours. If you guys want to keep watching some other videos, I got some cool ones I think you'll like to check out here. You can also click on them or just have the pop-up, whatever, in the description. And I'd like to hear what you guys think. Also, if you want to subscribe, I make a couple new videos a week, so it should be worth it. Thanks so much, guys, and have a good one.